Hey everyone, about that time. Let's get started. Welcome and thank you for making time to join me today for Arts in the Parks and Historic Sites Grant Information Webinar. I'm Anna Tragesser. I am the Artist and Community Services Manager at the Indiana Arts Commission, and I'll be your main contact for everything about this application, the funding process, and I can help with any advice on developing your project or working out some relationships with the sites. This program is a partnership between the Indiana Arts Commission, the Indiana State Museum, and the Department of Natural Resources. It is funded by the National Endowment for the Arts and the Indiana General Assembly, so both your state and federal tax dollars. So thanks to our federal and state legislators and decision makers for that. We know how much time and planning the application process takes, so we've been really blessed to see the incredible experiences that come out of this grant program and excited for you to see some of them as well. You are muted today, but you can submit any questions at any time in a chat box. You see a chat option somewhere around the corner of your screen in a menu. So feel free to send them as they come, and I will pause throughout the presentation to answer your questions along the way. So today, I will give you the lowdown on this grant program. I'll give you some examples of some successful projects. I will then walk you through how to plan your project and prepare your application and navigate the online system. And by the end of this webinar, you should be ready to make that first phone call to the site staff and get started on your project. All right, so what is this project? This program, the goals of this program, here we go, are to provide an engaging experience with the public within a state park, state forest, or state historic site that celebrates the site's unique natural and cultural value. Typical projects might include an artist residency, workshops, performances, exhibitions, hands-on activities, demonstrations, all with an emphasis on providing an engaging and a participatory experience for folks at that participating site. This is the 5th year this program will happen, and we've seen many grantees participate year after year, returning for some of the same projects, which is incredible, and refining their activities, incorporating this program into their regular work. This grant program not only is a great chance to have your work in a state park or historic site funded, but it will also help you build lasting partnerships with the sites. It may give you the chance to engage more with your audience or find a new audience. And in the past, it's been a great opportunity to test out your participatory ideas and really apply the feedback you get from your partners and participants. I'll talk more about what that could look like soon. What I love about this program is that you, because you participate in it, you're making this a norm in Indiana. Hoosiers and visitors can learn, experience, and be inspired by Indiana and by their own creativity. You make that happen, it's incredible. That's the Indiana I love, and thank you for making that just a place, something that's true about the place that we live. So let me tell you a little bit more about what happens in this program with some specific examples. Poet Sherry Wagner offered 3 poetry workshops at Levi and Catherine Coffin State Historic Site for both adults and high school students. She built a strong partnership with the park staff, and they led the group on hikes together through the property that inspired their writing. Participants received Sherry's expert feedback as a professional poet, and they made connections with fellow writers, both locally and from around the state. Musician Nicole Williams developed a drumming circle activity for children and families at Potato Creek State Park. In addition to inviting underserved park visitors to experience the natural beauty of State Park, the exercises that she produced broke down barriers of race, gender, and other stereotypes. The participants became more comfortable with the drumming, and in the end wanted to spend more time with this newfound community. You can see some of them looking very uncomfortable here. The textile artist Kate Ellis hosted several natural dye workshops at McCormick's Creek State Park, after sensing a developing trend in her area in eco-friendly dyeing. In this process, she realized there was a market for her skills, which was teachers. She's using this experience, this grant, as a starting point for a new business venture in dyeing classes for educators. So you're probably already brimming with ideas about what you could do with this grant. The first thing to do is to choose a location or locations. You can use this grant for multiple activities at multiple participating sites if you want. Participating sites include 52 state parks, forests, recreation areas, lakes, and historic sites in Indiana. Because this program is a partnership between the Indiana Arts Commission, the Department of Natural Resources, and the Indiana State Museum of Historic Sites, these state properties are the only participating sites. So no county parks, local parks, and local historical markers or other sites of significance are not participating parts of this program. There are 3 parks in this map that are high demand. They are the yellow dots on the map. They are Brown County State Park, Indiana Dunes State Park, and Fort Hairston State Park. If you're planning your project at one of those, make sure you just think of a backup just in case. If there are too many recommended proposals at those sites, we will have to prioritize by the highest scoring proposals at those sites until the capacity is reached. So the remaining applications will likely not be funded unless you choose an alternate location. So just with those 3, just keep that in mind. The red icons on the sites have received few or no projects in previous years, and we hope you'll consider them in this year's program. They really want to have a project at their site. They'll be great partners. However, selecting one of them will not increase your score. So here's what's ahead of you. This program's grant period is a calendar year 2020. Can't believe I'm saying that year. All the grant activity must be within the calendar year of 2020. So some other important dates to remember. The application deadline is September 5th if you are an organization, a 501c3 or a municipality, and September 12th for individual artists. That's everybody else. All deadlines are 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time. The public review panels will take place in late October, and the award notifications will be in December, following the Indiana Arts Commission's December quarterly business meeting. And the grant period begins January 1st. You can start your grant at any time after January 1st, 2020. You will be asked to submit a tentative date and location details and finalize your marketing by February of 2020, if you're funded. It's important to note that your first payment of this grant will be 75% of the total award, and it could take up to 3 months to process that. Sorry, state processes take a while, which can be a safe thing in some cases. It's also important to note that if you're awarded the grant, you should contact the property as soon as possible to let them know and to get stuff finalized on their calendar. You'll already have a strong partnership with them at this point, so it'll feel natural to you. Once your project is complete, we will require a final grant report. It is due January 2021, even further into the future, and that's when your remaining 25% of your grant award is starts processing. You can also submit that final grant report at any time during the year when you have finished all of your grant activities, and you can receive that remaining 25% sooner. So individual artists applying to this program must be 18 years or older, must be a resident of Indiana for at least 1 year, must be currently living in Indiana, and must be and remain an Indiana resident during the grant period. Each individual artist is required to select a discipline when you're applying. All art disciplines are available for funding in this funding cycle, and we just asked for that information for our own internal data. Only 1 application is allowed per individual artist for this program per year, and special funding, as special funding opportunities arise, we might deviate from that rule on a case-by-case basis based on our discretion and available funding. If you are an organization applying for this program, you must be a 501c3 currently, or an Indiana public entity, which is you are part of a city, a county, or a state government. You also must be a tax you can have a tax-exempt organization acting as a fiscal sponsor or fiscal agent for an organization that does not have its 501c3 status. If you are curious about that, that is a phone call conversation. You should just give me a call and we can work it out. You also must be incorporated in the state of Indiana at the time of the application, have an Indiana address, have a governing body that is representative of your organization's service area, and you can apply for this program if you are currently receiving grant funds from the Indiana Arts Commission through the Regional Initiative Grant, that is an Arts Project Support or Arts Organization Support Grant. Arts in the Parks applicants may request funding between $500 and $3,000 for allowable project expenses. Total project expenses should be at least $500, and any project below this amount is ineligible for funding. There's no match requirement. Funding from this grant can be used to support most aspects of arts program project or service expenses, but do not include capital expenses. Acceptable expenses include artistic fees, you can pay yourself. Our administrative fees, you can pay yourself. Space and equipment rental, travel, facility rental, including the gate or admission fee into the site. Make sure you take that into account, both for you and for any participants you want to pay for. Promotional costs, production costs, supplies, and those things needed to support the project activities. However, the grant award cannot be used to cover unacceptable expenses. They include events in private dwelling places or other locations that are not open to the general public, consumable supplies and materials that are not related to the project, capital acquisitions or equipment items that are $500 or more, so a single type of material or a single piece of equipment that is more than $500, which could be considered an asset and ineligible. Capital expenditures, travel outside the United States, projects or expenses that take place outside of the state of Indiana, project expenses outside the grant period, so it has to happen between January 1st and December 31st, 2020, and activities that are solely for the purpose of fundraising, private functions, religious services, lobbying activities, or any non-public activity. I think that's all the boring stuff for now, but that is all important. Well, let's talk about your project. As you're forming your idea, remember that it has to take place at one of the participating sites, at least one, could be more, and it needs to have minimum impact on the location, staff, and property. Also, consider your audience when you're planning this project, families included. Many artists who have reached out to me already have a project that they've been doing for years that qualifies for this kind of funding. It doesn't have to be a new idea or a really big idea. Start simple, be direct, and go from there. As I mentioned before, a lot of grantees continue these projects year after year and keep getting funded because it's working for them and for the site staff and participants. Your partnership with a state park or state historic site is very important throughout this project. You will need to get in touch with the site staff prior to applying because you'll be required to submit a statement of support with your application, which I'll explain in just a moment. It's a good idea to actually visit the site before applying because it is a site-specific project, but there are lots of ways that you can start building this partnership. Could be on site, but also could just be a phone call or an email to start out. So the way to start this out is share your idea with them. Get in touch. We have main contacts on our website. Get their feedback. And consider incorporating it into your project plan. There may be DNR or state historic site policies that you need to be aware of, like rental fees. You can't have balloons at a state park or a DNR property. And there are some restrictions on moving or collecting materials, natural materials. You can find those on our website, but be sure to clarify with site staff. A very strong application will connect the mission of the organization and the goals of the site with your activities, with what you're really good at and with what you are bringing to this opportunity. So for example, is there an endangered plant species at the park that the staff would really like folks to understand more or to really maybe even in some way touch or experience? How can what you do creatively help facilitate some of that? Is the site seeking an increase in attendance at a certain time of year? You probably have something to attract people to the site at that time of year. You should also iron out the logistics of your project with site staff during this first conversation, like the best time of year, the best location on their site, any venue or rental costs or things to avoid or ways that they can support you. Share who you believe is your primary audience for the activities you're offering, but there may be marketing opportunities or requirements at the site. You are responsible to market your own activities. I'll talk more about this in a moment. So like I said earlier, you'll need to upload a statement of support to your application. And again, I'll show you what that is in just a moment. So please be considerate of the amount of time and effort that the site staff is putting into your project. They are your partner and they are passionate about their work, and they see this as a real opportunity to do something interesting and really meaningful with you and with their visitors. But don't assume, and always ask what's feasible for them or what they hope to get out of the experience. And remember, each site you do an activity at will complete an evaluation of you and send it directly to me, and I share this evaluation with the panelists if you decide to apply for this grant in the future. But I always say, if there's anything ever negative on it, I say, make sure you touch base with the artist on that. It's never going to be a surprise. that that something didn't go the way that you or the site wanted it to, because you have a great relationship and you would know that anyway. So start your partnership out on the right foot. We created a fun little video with some tips for that first conversation with site staff, so you're not nervous about it at all and you feel like you can approach it with confidence and humility. And so check out that video on our website. It's also linked in the application. A lot of fun. All right. You will learn very quickly that your partnership with site staff can make or break any of your projects. Know that they're very dedicated people, but they're always pulled in multiple directions. And consider how your project can make their work easier or more meaningful. I've heard several grantees say that their partnership with the staff was so successful that they have been either contracted or referred to do more work, produce more programs outside of this grant project, even as paid opportunities. So consider this a job interview. When your site contact is actually starting to become comfortable with your idea, you've talked about all the things that you feel like are important, you guys are on the same page, then request a statement of support. You need to upload this for each of the sites that you're working with. So if you decide to propose a project that's taking place at 3 different historic sites, make sure you get a different statement of support for each main contact at that site. So it could be just a simple screen grab of an email from them, a statement from them. It could be something typed up on letterhead. It's whatever is feasible for them, and you just will upload that with your application. A strong application will be planned with the audience in mind first. So do you know who you intend to participate in this program? It's not just anyone or everyone who could possibly stumble upon it, although it does need to be open to the public. Defining a primary audience will really help you design an experience that's directly engaging and for the group of people who it matters most to. You don't have to be all things to all people. You may also want to consider asking your site contact if there's a group or segment of maybe their local community that they'd really like to engage with in a different way or visit the site. Here's a great example from a traditional Miami artist, Dani Titman. She said one group of scouts and their leaders attended her program because it would fulfill a badge requirement. This illustrated to me how many different reasons there are that the knowledge and history of our local heritage is so important. I had not realized until now that incorporating the anthropology of an area into the art that is presented is so important. So while your project does have to be open to the public, it's a good idea to identify that primary group who will get the most out of it. And you should be realistic about that. Design the experience with them in mind. So here's a novel idea. Bounce a couple of project ideas off some folks who might be part of your primary audience and incorporate their feedback. Be sure to mention that in your application too. Panelists will love that. Once you've narrowed in on who your primary audience might be, you're going to need to plan to communicate that opportunity with them. How do they communicate? How do they get information? Now we're talking marketing. So you are in charge of your own marketing plan. You're in charge of getting the right information out to the right people at the right time so that your primary audience knows about this opportunity. When you apply, you'll be asked for a general kind of, just tell us what you're thinking, general plan for marketing this project to the primary audience. So for example, maybe your primary audience is scout troops. You know from past experience and because you called the regional offices for the scout troops, and you know there's a regional newsletter that goes out once a month with activities that could fulfill badge requirements. Maybe you're also going to reach out to local troop leaders that you know personally with a phone call. This is a good start to that application response. So the question you see on screen is actually an exact application question, something you'll need to think about. If you are awarded a grant, then we're going to ask you to develop that out a little bit more. You'll be asked to provide more marketing information directly to the IAC. This includes tentative date and location for the activity. We also need a main contact because I get phone calls all the time asking about some of your projects and I haven't talked to you in a while, sadly. So I'm not able to give them the right information. So we recommend actually the best way to address that is to create a Facebook page, either for your own art or for your organization or an event for the activity itself so that we can direct people right to it. Tag us in that, we can co-host it for you and post updated information there. And so people can reach out to you really easily. If that won't work for you, then you will provide a phone number or an email address where we can direct people to you for questions. We will also ask you to submit a draft marketing plan to show that you're prepared for success. So more than just give us an idea of what you're thinking about, we're looking for actually, all right, what are some of the things that you're working towards, specifically timing and tactics, which I'll show you in a moment. The sites have offered some excellent marketing opportunities for you and to be part of what you're planning. In some cases, they'll even incorporate your event into their own marketing, which is great. But there's a couple of requirements for that. So remember, you're responsible for the marketing of your activities, but you can incorporate some of these opportunities into your plan. So if you're planning an activity at a state historic site, it will be listed on the Indiana State Museum and Historic Sites web calendar with the rest of their events that happen throughout the state. They will also themselves create a Facebook event page, and they will co-host it with you. Awesome, that's half the battle right there. But you're gonna need to send a finalized marketing plan to the staff listed on this screen, Renee Bruck. And you're also gonna wanna send her photos so that they can get that Facebook started. If you create marketing materials like anything digital or print with the Indiana State Museum and Historic Sites logo on it, then you're going to need to submit that to Julie Schaefer about a week before you release it for approval of that logo usage. And that finalized marketing plan and photo needs to be sent to Renee 60 days before your program date. If you are only planning something at a Department of Natural Resources property, they will be listed, well, anything that's happening at a DNR property will be listed on the DNR web calendar. And you will have submitted those details to us, to the Indiana Arts Commission in February if you're funded, and we'll pass that information along so that they can load it up for you. You don't have to submit a finalized marketing plan to DNR. If you're doing something at both a state historic site and a DNR property, you will still have to submit a finalized marketing plan to state historic sites, but you won't have to DNR. And you don't have to get logo approval for the DNR logo in any materials, nor for the ISE logo. As long as you're funded, you can use our logo. Although I do recommend that you do kind of finalize your draft marketing plan for your on-site. So here's what that looks like. You're going to submit a draft version of this to the Indiana Arts Commission and a finalized version of it to the Indiana State Museum and Historic Sites. If you're funded, that happens in February or 60 days before the program date. If you're doing activities at a historic site, like I said, you're going to send that to Renee. This document helps your partners keep track of your project details and help you be a partner in your marketing. While it's not required to complete unless you're funded, it sure could help you at this application stage. So you might want to download it and take a look anyway, because it can really help some of your responses in the application, although we're not required at that point. At the end of this document is an actual plan, this last table at the bottom. It includes a strategy, timeline, any materials that you'll create and share, and the responsible party for each strategy. So, quick summary, because that was kind of a lot of moving pieces. Everyone who's funded will be required to submit tentative dates and locations and contact information in a draft marketing plan to the IAC in February. Every grantee with activities at a historic site will be required to finalize that draft marketing plan and send photos to Renee at State Museum and Historic Sites 60 days before your project starts, so that they can get it on their calendar and get a Facebook event started. And any grantees with activities at a historic site who's using the Indiana State Museum and Historic Site logo on any materials, submit that to Julie a week before you release it. Nothing additional is required for a DNR property. All this information can be found on our webpage, the Arts in the Parks and Historic Sites Marketing Guidelines webpage. It's also linked in the application if you can't find it at this point. Okay, I'm going to take a moment and check out the questions in the chat box. Feel free to keep shooting more questions this way. Okay, how can I tell if a National Historic Landmark site is a partner? In this case, we are only partnering with the State Museum and Historic Sites. And so the best thing to do is to use that map, which can be found on our website of participating sites. There are 11, I believe, state historic sites that are part of this program. I can show you how to find that. I'm going to show you right now. I'll pull up the webpage. I'm going to go to in.gov/arts, which is our webpage. On the left-hand side of the page, I can find arts in the parks and historic sites. And here we are, participating sites. So you can click on this, which will take you to an interactive map that shows you exactly who's participating. Okay. The next question is, can we record this meeting? Yes, great news, it's being recorded right now, so I'll be posting it online soon. All right, let's keep moving on. Feel free to put more questions in the chat box as you're going along. All right, so preparing your application. Now that you've got an idea of how to put together a successful project, let's get into the actual application. The application must be submitted through our online system. You can access it at this link here. You'll want to bookmark the logon page when you get there. Or you can find information about logging in to our online system, creating an account, or any other troubleshooting here on the left-hand side of our page in the navigation bar. Click Access the Online Grant System, and you can click here to log in. You can also hear some other information about how to start a new account or troubleshoot a few things. But in this case, I've already logged in, so I'm going to show you what this application looks like. When you first log in, you'll come to your Applicant Dashboard, and this shows you all the information about anything that you've applied for previously here at the bottom. You can update your information if you want. But what you want to do is come up to the top and click Apply to find grants that are open and accepting applications. So great, the first thing you come through is Arts in the Parks and Historic Sites. Remember, there are two ways to apply, either as an organization or an individual artist, and so make sure that you're selecting the right program. To actually start an application, you click this blue Apply button at the top right of that program. If you're not ready to apply yet, but you just want to check out the application, you can click this preview. Send to Grant Hub is just another tool. Grant Hub is another program that kind of keeps track of grants across multiple organizations for you. So if you're using Grant Hub, that's great. Feel free to do that. I've never used it, so I can't really help you with that. In this case, I'm just going to preview this application just to give you an idea of what you're going to look at. Okay, so I've got some advice to you here at the first start of this application. This is where you can find marketing guidelines. The resources listed here are very helpful. I've kind of dropped them into different places throughout the application so that you can use them for relevant pieces of it, but definitely recommend flipping through all of those. Here is where that video on your first conversation with the site staff can be found. Okay, so just going to move through a few things here. This is a pretty dynamic application. I'm not going to go through each question because I think we'll get the hang of it pretty quickly. But remember to select the right application when you're opening this up. This one in this case is for an individual, but you can apply as an organization. You just got to find that other application. So everything here, just type directly into the form. Remember, in this case, I'm only previewing this application, and so nothing will save. But if I had actually hit apply, then everything is going to save automatically for me. As long as you're connected to the internet, every time you type or every time you type 100 characters or every time you click, it will save automatically. All right, remember you can select as many sites as is feasible for you to do this program. There's no extra points for doing more, just do what's feasible. As you come along here, the thing that I want to focus in on is that each section is highlighting specific criteria. There are 4 main criteria, which I'm going to just hit on in a moment, but they're listed right here within the application. So make sure that you're really highlighting these criteria, the scoring criteria we're looking for as you're answering each of these questions. Remember that this program is pretty important to highlight what's unique about the site. You may have to have a conversation with the site staff if you're not feeling like you're answering that question really well. You may just want to go explore the site a little bit more, may need to do a little bit more research into how your work, your creative work, connects with what's unique about the site. and how people can connect with it. Also important to articulate what the site wants to get out of it. So this is a good conversation to have with the site staff right at the beginning, their goals. You do not have to use every allowable character in each of these questions. In fact, being concise and brief goes a long way as long as you're answering the question completely. There are places where you'll need to upload a file. So pretty simple here, but if you're having any trouble with that, don't ever hesitate to call me and I can take care of it for you. I cannot, however, help you with any of your own computer technical problems or specific things about your operating system, but I can help you with getting things into the online system. So again, just a few different things we're looking for in the criteria, in this case, public benefit and participation. This is where you're talking about who is your primary audience and how are they going to participate? How is this an active experience for them? Remember, you're designing this with them in mind first, based on your strengths as an artist or as an arts organization. We also ask you to take a good look at how am I going to know if this was successful for the participants, for the site, for myself. This is where you'll want to tell us about all of the logistics of the program, including show us that you have you know, a timeline that makes sense. Show us that you have either staff who's going to help you, maybe your own staff or you're hiring assistants, or you've got folks who are partners of yours who are going to make sure that this goes off without a hitch, or maybe you've got all the expertise you need. And of course, your marketing plan, which I talked about earlier. In this case, we're not asking for the full document upload here. We're just asking for a general overview of what's your plan for marketing to this primary audience that you've identified. I'm going to take a moment and describe the budget because it trips folks up. The biggest thing to remember is that your expenses and your income should be the same, because we want to see that you have the amount of resources going into the project to cover all of the resources that are going to be spent on the project. So in this box first, we want you to list the line items that you're investing into this project. So here's what I'm looking for. Looking for your grant request, so you should have at least the amount that you are requesting listed here. In this case, it might be $3,000, might be less. Oops. If you're going to charge any fees for this program, that's fine. Yeah, that can be included as part of the income for the program. That is all of the resources going into the program. And maybe you've decided that it's worth it to you to kick in some other cash yourself. That could be included in this projected income. You're going to total up all of these line items in this, and that is your total project income. So again, the resources that are going toward your project, just cash resources in so far. Then you're going to list everything that you're going to spend all of that income on, including the grant request, including anything above and beyond it. So it lists everything that you need to that you need to expense to make this project happen. That's materials, it might be rental fees, it might be artistic fees, it might be transportation to go scouting the site, it might be, yeah, it might be paying yourself. You are a professional, and so you might pay yourself in this. In that case, you just want to make sure that you kind of justify a little bit of what you're paying yourself. So maybe a standard fee for your kind of artistic services is $75 an hour, or whatever this for a workshop. Just give us an idea of that, and it should make sense. So the reviewer is reading that, it should seem feasible to them. So you may just have to give a little bit of an explanation. These expenses should add up to be exactly the same amount as your total project income. So if I have $3,500 worth of expenses, then I need to show that I have $3,500 worth of income. No more, no less. I don't care if you earn income on this yourself, like personal income. In this case, we're looking at resources going into the project and resources that are being spent to make the project happen. There might be things that other folks are contributing to the project, other resources, that's in kind. So in kind is Any non-cash resources contributed to the project by anyone other than you. So that could be volunteer hours, it could be materials that you have that you're borrowing, or somebody's donating, somebody other than you is donating. We want to know that kind of stuff here. So list all of those main categories here and add them up to show the in-kind support. This is its own number, so you do not include that in the expenses or in the income. So if I could have $3,500 worth of expenses, $3,500 worth of income, and maybe $500 worth of in-kind, that would be how we wanted to see that budget. So if I've just confused you further, then go ahead and give me a call when you're working out your budget, and we'll make sure that it is being clearly proposed in your application. We're also looking for, if you are an individual artist, we want you to show us your stuff. So not only do we want you to describe how your artistic experience relates to this project, you should be putting your best foot forward in this. We hope this is something that you really enjoy and are inspired to do. Especially when you are coming up with the right fit for this program, when you're thinking about what's the goal of the site, what does the site want to get out of it, think about also like, what am I really good at? What do I bring to the table in this? Really at the heart of everything we do at the Indiana Arts Commission is that we believe that you have something really valuable to bring to any conversation. Arts conversations are not arts conversations. This is a great experience to test out some of those ideas and be authentic to yourself. Really like lean into your strengths in this. We want to see an artist resume. If you have never put together an artist resume before, this is a great time to do it. If you don't know how, I will be happy to send you to some great resources or to give you some advice of what to include. You might want to think about including, for the purposes of this grant, anything non-arts related that is actually related to this grant itself. So maybe you are also a landscaper, and this is really important because your project is incorporating some different native Indiana species. You might consider including that in your resume. We want to see some artistic documentation. This is required this year. So we want to see some of your work. You can submit either, well, you can submit one of the three ways that I've listed here. You can submit up to 10 images. You can submit a link to a video or media file that will send somebody to like YouTube or Vimeo or Dropbox, or you can submit up to 10 pages of a writing sample. But remember, if you are uploading a file, you can only upload one single file per question. So if you are uploading 10 images, they need to be consolidated into one file. That could be a single PDF file with 10 different pages of high quality images, one image each page. If you need advice on how to present that documentation, I'll be happy to talk it through with you. Okay, we also ask, this is an optional question, but we ask you to give us an idea, give the panelists a sense of like what's going to happen during this, give them a visual or give them an example, an audio or a video example of what the participants will do or what you will do, but especially what the participants will do. We want to see some high quality opportunities here, at least to learn and engage with the medium. If you've done this project before, this is a great place to upload images of what's happened in the past and really helps the panelists understand what you're proposing to do. We also just want you to really, really lay it out for us. How is this project going to help the audience increase their understanding and appreciation for what they're doing with you for that art medium? And then just a few additional questions about you, some of your personal information that is, we've marked some of these that are confidential. If you would like to be considered applying in the Artist Access category, please feel free. The Access category is an opt-in, optional category for artists who identify as somebody with a disability in any arts discipline. So those applicants will be paneled with other applications that also identify in that way, but everyone competes for the same funding source. That stuff is confidential on what, we ask you to give us an idea of the nature of your disability, and that's confidential, but again, you will be marked as opting into the access category when we have any public information. Okay, so again, I'll just show you one more time how we got to here. You logged in, you are on your applicant dashboard. For me, I clicked apply up here. And then you're going to select the actual blue button. I'm not going to do that because I don't want to start an application for myself. But then once that'll take you into the actual application and everything saves automatically. And when you want to go back in, maybe you get tired of working on this or you need to make a phone call and clarify a few things, you can come back to this anytime. You do not need to click that blue apply button again. That will start a fresh application. Instead, come back to the applicant dashboard. I clicked that house icon. And it will be listed here underneath active requests. And you can click edit on any application that you've started that is still accepting submissions and get going again. Okay, excellent. A couple of other tips. I don't recommend that you write in Microsoft Word and then paste into these responses because it will bring in some formatting issues. And so if you're going to do that, you can right click and select paste as plain text, and that will, I'll just show you here really quick, that will make sure that there's no formatting that's being brought in as well. So for example, if I right click and instead of selecting paste, I can select paste as plain text, and that'll paste in without any issues. Okay. Great, I think that's all I want to show you in the application itself, but I'm going to run to chat over here and answer any questions. Will we be able to print the forms to work on them and enter them later? Yeah, great question. Actually, I'm glad you brought that up. You will still have to enter everything into this online form. If you don't have the technology or the ability to do that, just contact me and we can come up with a solution for you. However, I do want you, this is how we accept applications. So only on like special conditions we'll make some other accommodations. But you can, gosh, I wish I had a better example of this. When you actually start an application, there will be a button up here that is like a application packet. Or you can click this question list. And by clicking either of those, it will populate as a PDF. In this case, the question list is just a blank application. You can see it's a different format than what you would see in that live form. If you had already started your application and you downloaded an application packet, like if you wanted to save the version of it that you were doing, you can click that and it would download it populated with your responses. You can download or print from there. It might look slightly different depending on your operating system on your computer. Okay. We have several activities. Do we have to talk to each part before we apply or after we apply? Before. If you are proposing several different sites, you need to have a conversation with each of them. They don't always talk to each other, although they have some similarities likely. I recommend that if you want some advice on creating an artist resume that you call me directly. And that my contact information is at the end of this webinar and available online in lots of places, so you should be able to get in touch with me pretty easily. Okay, let's keep moving along. There's just a little bit more information to get through. All right, make sure you allow yourself plenty of time to get this done. I guarantee you that if you try to submit this form right at 4:29 Eastern time on the deadline, you're going to have a technical problem. And when that happens, just call me immediately. I can help you get some things sorted out, but you have to keep me updated. We don't recommend copy and paste. I already talked about that. And it's always good to have another set of eyes on things for typos or for clarity. Be concise and clear and answer that question directly. You don't need to use all of the character count listed in that application form. Okay, so before you submit, make sure you make all your revisions. We do not make revisions after you submit, except in extreme circumstances. And as long as the application is submitted before the deadline and you need to make that revision before the deadline, but only in extreme circumstances. Okay, as soon as you hit submit, you will receive a confirmation email from the online system. If you did not receive a confirmation email, check your junk and then call us to confirm if it has been submitted or not. It likely was not submitted. Okay. So Here's how we make decisions about public funding. All funding decisions start and end with citizens. Since these are taxpayer dollars, we use a very fair and transparent process. We use citizen advisory panels that review and score each application according to the review criteria that I kind of alluded to earlier. Then we meet together, those folks meet together at an online public meeting to discuss and finalize their recommendations for funding. And the highest scores, the highest qualifying scores, go on to our Citizen Board of Commissioners for approval. And that's how the funding process works in a nutshell. In late October, each application will be reviewed and scored by a conflict-free panel of arts and environmental or cultural history professionals or artists with site-specific experience. They are trained on how to review each application fairly and on what application criteria mean. They meet together online to discuss, and I will send you the date, time, and instructions for joining the meeting as soon as that information is finalized. It is through Zoom, just like we're meeting today. These conversations are recorded, the public panel meetings, and made available to you after the meeting. But you can sign in real time to listen, but there's no provision for public comment in these public panel meetings. So your attendance in them is for observation only. The evaluation criteria is exactly what we use to prioritize applications. So applications will be scored on a 100-point scale by this panel. The scores will be included as part of a funding formula to assist with the allocation of grant awards. Applications with a score of 75 or higher are eligible for funding. Evaluation criteria details are embedded in the online application and are explained in depth on page 6 of the guidelines, which are on our website and linked within the application form. Information submitted in the application will be reviewed according to these criteria, and remember that all proposals are considered a public document and subject to public information request unless it's marked confidential in the form, like your information on if you apply in the access category. Financial need is not a consideration for funding. Applications are reviewed by these evaluation criteria only. We're looking for projects that have strong site partnerships and engagement with the site's uniqueness, those that provide an excellent opportunity for public benefit and participatory arts experiences, those that are thoughtfully planned and feasible, and those that provide high quality arts opportunities to the public. This is a competitive grant program. You are competing with each other based on these criteria. Like I mentioned earlier, once the panel takes place, applications with a score of 75 or above are eligible for funding. And then we look at how much funding is available across the state and move forward the highest scores that we can afford, basically, for the whole grant program. We have allocated a little over $200,000 for this program. In the last time that we funded, calendar year 2019, we funded 73 applications. It was about 85% of the applications. 49 of those funded were artists and 24 were organizations, so a total of 73. Okay. Some of the questions, is there a maximum funding or is it by activity? You can request up to $3,000 for whatever it is that you propose, but again, consider some of these criteria. Make sure this is what we're going to be looking for in the end. We're not looking for the cheapest projects, we're looking for those that best fit this review criteria. Other questions? Great question. Is there a place where we can read about current and past funded projects? Yes, I can't wait to show you. On our website, on Arts in the Parks and Historic Sites, here we go. Hang on, let me get there. You can read the 2019 activity calendar, which is a crazy, awesome list of all over 400 opportunities to participate in one of these activities by date and exactly what's going on there. Or you can read descriptions of things that have been funded in 2019. And here you can see any of our grants awarded, but specifically if you're looking for arts in the parks and historic sites, check out this PDF here. And remember that we fund both artists and organizations. A couple of years available to you at this time. All right, everyone. That's about all the arts in the parks and historic sites that I think you can handle at this point. But remember, well, I guess one last detail. These recommendations are being finalized by our Board of Commissioners during their December business meeting, and so you will be notified if you've been funded or not after that December business meeting. Okay, don't forget, I am always here to answer your questions about this stuff, to troubleshoot with you. Here's my contact information. Please use it. I'm here to help.